Aggies, welcome to the USU Truth and Tuition for 24-25 here. We're streaming from the Taggart Student Center ballroom at the Logan main campus. My name is Abraham Rodriguez, our current student body president, and we will get started soon. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to President Cantwell. So President Cantwell will walk over and talk about our tuition and student fees and what's been done, and she'll give us a recap for this year. So without further ado, let's get a round of applause for President Cantwell. Thank you.
I'm going to do this in walk-around fashion and hold the microphone so I can actually see the slides. So a reminder for all of you, we will be doing two really effective hearings, a truth and tuition hearing and a fees hearing, both of which are required. We have historically, for some short period of time, done them to basically put the two types of revenues together. I'm not going to do that because they are different revenue sources and they are different revenue uses. And I don't want you to confuse tuition and its sources and its uses with fees and their sources and their uses. So we're going to do two separate hearings here. Boom, boom. I will also remind you that each of these hearings is required by law and by policy. So just a little bit about our recommendations. Each one, and I'll show you the timeline, but each one comes with a series of deliberations, which are the basis for developing our recommendations, in this case for tuition increases. We have had two of those deliberations with USU student leadership, which in this case have expressed support, have weighed in, we've given consideration, have affirmed the proposed tuition increases, and particularly through the student lens, do they optimize student, faculty, and staff enrichment, sustain scholarship support, and enhance student success? So we're proposing, and I will give you all the dirty details in a moment, a modest tuition increase of 3.4%, recommended for Logan and statewide campuses, no tuition increases in technical education. Tuition, a reminder, we have formal technical education programs at 3 of our locations, Blanding, Moab, and Price. So just so you can sort of calibrate this, each dollar of proposed increase creates a direct benefit in the following ways, kind of looking at a dollar as the entirety. 66 cents would go towards legislative match to cover ongoing and mandatory university expenses. I'll discuss that in a minute. 8 cents of each dollar to maintain USU student scholarship support, and 26 cents to sustain and reward faculty for academic excellence, including promotion and tenure for faculty success and earned advancement. Nationally, the top 3 reasons, I want to just stage set for a minute, for rising college tuition, all of which apply to our statewide system, include college and statewide campuses providing more student support services, changes in funding levels from state and local government, and overall rising costs for services. And so we're in terms of services, we're on par with where the rest of the world is going with rising costs. So I'll finish this and then get to what's going on in the state allocation that causes us to spend 66 cents of every dollar on matching those mandatory expenses. I don't have a slide or a graph here for you, but I do want to really note, and you can see it in both our annual financial report and in my testimony to the State Higher Ed Appropriations Committee, which is available, and I did that about 6 weeks ago at the very beginning of this legislative session. We are amongst the lowest tuition and highest value compared to you can compare our peers in Utah, you can compare our peers, more importantly, in terms of the type of state land grant institution we are, of about the same size with the same caliber of faculty, students, and staff. So just to show you, we have a mandatory set of meetings. This is them, and this is when they have occurred. Today is March 5th. On Friday, we'll be doing this pitch to the Board of Trustees, and then we will forward this proposed increase to the Board of Higher Education on the 22nd. So actually what's not here is, and I do want to remind you that when our legislature approves a salary increase for state employees, and our employees are state employees, they cover 75% of that. They add to our budget in each year 75% of that. We are expected to cover 25% of that from tuition increase. That is solely what this tuition increase is. So again, this is what I just said. We're proposing 3.4% for Logan and statewide, nothing for tech ed. So the legislative match requirement, that is what I just spoke to you about, which is our portion of the compensation increase, which is expected to come from tuition, and then other mandated costs increase. The simplest one to talk about, they aggregate, is property insurance. We are part of the statewide insurance system. We get a bill every year from the state. That goes up annually. We are expected to cover 25% of that through tuition increases. 75% gets covered by the state. Faculty promotion and tenure, so that's 2.25 of our 3.4, is a 0.9, and then scholarship support. And again, that is a direct result of the proposed increase, is if we don't also increase our scholarship support, we will only be able to have enough money for fewer students on central funded scholarships. So we generally propose that we increase the scholarship support as tuition increases associated with mandatory increases so that we can support the same number of students on centrally funded scholarships. And that's 0.25%. This is kind of these are the actual dollar amounts associated with those percentages. And I'll give you some more details here, but then this is just a pie chart of what that looks like in terms of the percentages. So let's go into the details. This is showing you the 3.4% in terms of this dollar amount compared to our current tuition and what then the proposed tuition is. So if you look at the undergraduate resident amount, it's been $3,693.67. With a 3.4% increase, that'll be $3,819.30. You can see the same thing for undergraduate non-resident, graduate resident, and graduate non-resident. That's at Logan and statewide. At Eastern, Blanding, and Moab, I will remind you, if you haven't seen this hearing before, there's a two-part system at those three campuses. If you are taking 65 credits or less, generally these are our students who are getting certificates or, more importantly, AA degrees at those institutions, then they have a different tuition structure, but the 3.4% is still proposed. So you can see the current tuition, the proposed amount, and the proposed tuition for each of those three campuses when you are in a program at less than 65 credits. When you are in a program at more than 65 credits, you revert to exactly the same tuition, current tuition, and proposed tuition as we're seeing on this slide. And then this is the details by credit hour for undergraduate tuition per semester, showing you current and proposed, resident and non-resident. And for graduate tuition, same thing, per semester, per credit hour, resident, current and proposed, non-resident, current and proposed, up to 25 credit hours. And I'm happy to go back and let anybody look at these. But we are at the point of asking questions. A reminder, I will go over fees in detail after this. So does anyone here have questions, or I have my online. So we have, I don't know how many people who are watching, about 8. Are there any questions on this? Any explanation I can provide? Anybody want to see per credit hour numbers again? Yes, can you come up to the microphone so those who are online can hear you? Thanks. I could hear you, but they can't.
What other mandatory costs do you have other than property taxes or property insurance?
So, you mean, sorry, you're talking about the mandated cost increases.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of that is property insurance. Dave, you could help me with, I think that's probably 80% of that. There is another. I will repeat this. Okay, I'll repeat it. The vast majority is related to property insurance. So basically the insurance that the state pays for us but covers 75% of the cost, and we're expected to cover the 25% with tuition. And I think there's even, yeah, so basically these are different categories of insurance that rise at different levels each year, and we have a 25% of that total cost bill.
The other items are really very small, but we have a similar model where we're charged on the
So if we use Attorney General as the office's funds or services, we're charged, and we're charged on an annual basis for that, based on an expected usage. I think that's about it, but the property insurance is the highest, and liability insurance is the next highest. Yes?
So this is from a online attendee, and it says, what about differential tuition?
That's a good question. So what the question, and I think I'll come back to, sorry, it's not advancing very quickly, current tuition. So if you look at the current tuition, that does not include differential tuition at this point. I'm looking at Dave for help here, but I believe that differential tuition is not associated with tuition increases. I'm getting the details, so hold on. For all of you that are online. So where we have differential tuition, we have it in a few places. Only in the Huntsman School of Business does the differential tuition increase at the proposed increase rate. All the other differential tuitions, and we have them in engineering, and some places in the statewide system have differential tuition. Do they not change at the proposed percentage increase? Sarah?
How is this tuition increase impacting graduate funding, specifically stipends?
Yeah, so Sarah's asking a really important question about graduate student stipends, and this is something that comes up every year, meaning there's no direct policy or requirement for tuition increases to be absorbed one way or another into stipends. So we do that, and particular, I will point to the many discussions we're having this year about graduate student stipends, which are in general not in a good state, and we know that, and we are really and it's complicated because graduate students are not regular employees, neither are they regular students. And this isn't just us, it's a really, when I say it's complicated, that sounds like such a cop-out, but it is an incredibly complicated situation. So we are talking about stipends and how we can, there are other, parking fees have gone up. That's a huge impact for graduate students because their stipends are low. So we're talking about all of those, but we don't have a policy that says this is exactly what's going to happen. I mean, the other thing we're doing, and Sarah knows this, so I'll tell the rest of you out there who are potentially interested in the graduate student conundrum, is really talking to our federal funders about, and the NIH just did this year, but most of our federal funders have not changed the graduate student stipend requirement for when you put a proposal in for 10 years. So we are part of several groups, including at the APLU, that are just saying this is absolutely, we can't have graduate students do research and be paid what they were paid 10 years ago. So we'll see where that goes. But I mean, the bottom line is there's no direct relationship, and that I can say, honestly, there's a policy that says this. But we are highly, and I am highly aware of the need to manage better our graduate student stipend situation. Other questions? Is there any reaction to that? Other questions online? Questions from the room? I mean, anybody that's interested in this situation, you can always find a, sorry, where is it? Here. I encourage you to I mean, really, and this has been true, I went back to 2015, so I looked back that far. The legislative match requirement for compensation has been on the order of 85 to 90% of the requested increase. I will tell you, because I've said this, some of you are members of student government, there have been years in the past at USU, they have not been very recent years, but there have been years in the past where student government requested a piece of tuition increase to cover things that they felt were important. We haven't seen that for a large number of years, 9 years or so at this point. But it is not something that's unheard of at USU. That if student government comes forward and says, we think we'd like to raise tuition a little bit for this purpose or that purpose, we would listen to that. And that's the only reason I bring it up, is you do have the right to request that we pay attention and consider that. Not that we think there are many students, but there have been just a couple of times when we felt that was important. So, other questions, or should I move on to fees?